very good evening. You're watching Primetime News on TV1, live and direct from our Newsfirst studios in Colombo. Bringing you the news, I'm Jadabdin.
And I'm Rochelle Tumodra. These are your headlines for tonight.
Starlink to be rolled out nationwide by the end of this month, says Deputy Minister for Digital Economy. China to support digital transformation in general education. Pilot project to be conducted in 500 schools. Signs of a successful ceasefire between Iran and Israel as NATO leaders convene in The Hague. UN Human Rights Chief visits Jaffna and Tripoli. CID submits report to court on former President Ranil's alleged use of state funds for private foreign trip. Prisons Commissioner General Tushara Upuldennia remanded again.
On to those stories in detail. Deputy Minister of Digital Economy Eranga Weeraratne says Starlink services will be available across the entire country by the end of this month. He stated that a pilot project has already provided access to 10 selected users as part of the initial rollout.
Starlink is a global high-speed internet service network designed to provide faster and more reliable connectivity even in remote and hard-to-reach areas, surpassing traditional service providers. The project is operated by SpaceX, a company owned by tech entrepreneur Elon Musk. Starlink is already active in over 130 countries and regions around the world.
We have completed all the necessary regulatory requirements for Starlink. Everything from licensing to providing all required clearances. We have issued the license and provided all the support needed for customs clearance for the equipment. 10 Starlink devices have already been distributed among 10 selected customers as part of an initial pilot rollout. Following this, we plan to present a dashboard to the government, particularly to the Ministry of Defence. Once that presentation is completed, we expect Starlink will be able to launch services nationwide by the end of this month.
China has agreed to provide $20 million in funding to support the digital transformation of general education in Sri Lanka. Accordingly, the cabinet has approved the implementation of a project in 500 selected schools.
Cabinet approval has been granted for the initial phase of the project, which includes providing equipment for model smart classrooms in 500 selected schools, establishing a network operations management unit, a program operations center and a conference room at Isirupaya.
During the President's official visit to China in January this year, both the parties reached a mutual agreement with Chinese authorities to expedite the implementation of the project. Accordingly, under the proposed initiative, 500 selected schools will be provided with the necessary equipment for model smart classroom. The project will also establish a network operations management unit, a program operations center and a conference room at the Isirupaya premises. The cabinet has granted approval for the proposal, which was presented by the Prime Minister in her capacity as Minister of Education, Higher Education and Vocational Education.
විදිහටද එහෙම නැත්නම් පරිත්‍යාගයක් විදිහටද අපිට ලැබෙන්නේ ආධාරයකට ලැබෙන එකක්. එතෙන්දී වැදගත්ම කාරණා මේ පාසල් 500 තෝරාගන්නේ කොහොමද? අතර මේ ව්‍යාපෘතිය
In fact, discussions on this project have been ongoing for some time and the Ministry of Education has an established mechanism in place for its implementation. The selection of the 500 schools is being carried out based on proposals already submitted by education authorities.
තිබුණ යෝජනා සැලකට අරගෙන තමයි මේ පාසල් 500 තෝරා ගැනීම සිදු කරන්නේ.
The Criminal Investigation Department has informed the court that a special investigation has been launched into a private overseas trip allegedly undertaken by former President Ranil Wickremesinghe using government funds. According to the police, the details of the investigation were submitted to the Colombo Fort Magistrates Court through a B report.
Investigations have revealed that former President Ranil Wickremesinghe travelled to the United Kingdom to attend his wife's PhD graduation ceremony. According to police statements, the event was held at the University of Wolverhampton and the former president participated in the ceremony. The trip reportedly took place on the 22nd and 23rd of September 2023. Police further stated that approximately 16.9 million rupees in government funds were spent on this visit. A group of 10 individuals individuals is said to have accompanied the former president on this trip. It has also been revealed that Wickremesinghe was on an official visit to Cuba and the United States at the time and travelled from the US to the UK to undertake this private visit. Meanwhile, the Criminal Investigation Department has decided to obtain statements from two individuals, including a senior official from Wickremesinghe's staff, in connection with the ongoing investigation into this foreign trip made during his presidency. Police noted that these officials are currently overseas and have requested the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to take necessary steps to bring them back to Sri Lanka for questioning.
The Colombo Magistrates Court has ordered that Tushara Uppuldeniya, the suspended Commissioner General of Prisons, be further remanded until the 9th of July in connection with unauthorized release of an inmate from the Anuradhapura prison, allegedly with assistance provided in violation of presidential pardon procedures. Colombo Chief Magistrate Thanuja Lakmali Jatunga also directed the prosecution to conclude investigations and report findings to the court on that date. Additionally, the Chief Magistrate granted permission to transfer the suspect to a different prison facility following a request made by Deputy Solicitor General Suharshi Herath, who appeared on behalf of the prosecution. On to more local news, a 3-member committee appointed to investigate the allegations mentioned in the proposal to remove Inspector General of Police Deshabandhu Tennakone convened for the 12th day at the Parliamentary Complex. According to a statement issued by the Office of the Secretary General of Parliament, all witnesses listed by IGP Tennakone have now completed giving their testimonies before the committee.
The 3-member committee began proceedings by questioning Tanesh Dyers, Senior Human Resources Manager of Sri Lanka Cricket. Attorney-at-Law Sanjeeva Veeravikrama, representing IGP Deshabandhu Tennakone, first asked whether Tennakone had served as a Special Security Advisor to Sri Lanka Cricket in 2023.
No, Your Honour. Did Sri Lanka Cricket make any payments to Deshabandhu Tennakone? No, Your Honour. Was any formal offer made to Tennakone for the role of Special Security Advisor? Yes, Your Honour. We extended an offer to him on the 7th August 2023. However, he later informed us in writing that he could not accept the position due to holding another role. He officially declined the offer on the 5th November 2023. Was he provided with a laptop, tablet or any other equipment? No, Your Honour. Did the document in question contain the word offer? No, Your Honour. Then what exactly does the letter state? Doesn't it mention that the appointment was made through Sri Lanka Cricket? You previously referred to it as an offer. You are not an official of Sri Lanka Cricket. Did you attend the committee meeting that recommended Tennakone's appointment? I did not attend. Then how can you make such a claim?
The witness remained silent and did not respond to the question. Subsequently, Additional Solicitor General Dilip Peris questioned the witness.
Was Tennakone provided with a basic salary, phone allowance, fuel allowance, medical or insurance benefits through Sri Lanka Cricket for a period of 3 months? None of these were provided. Can you confirm with certainty that Tennakone was not appointed to that position? I can confirm that. Can you also confirm that Tennakone did not receive any payments? Yes, Your Honour. Since he did not accept the offer, I instructed the Finance Division of Sri Lanka Cricket to withhold any payments. Has Sri Lanka Cricket ever entered into such an agreement with the public servant before? No, Your Honour. This was the first time.
The committee then asked why the witness had not brought the original copy of the relevant document.
I was unable to bring it today, but I can submit it later.
The next witness to testify before the committee was Priyantha Jayatilaka Pereira, Chief Accountant of the Police Department. Attorney-at-Law Sanjeeva Veeravikrama, representing Tennakone, began the questioning.
Who currently oversees the Police Reward Fund? Your Honour, it is under the authority of the Inspector General of Police. If the IGP gives approval in a manner that is not legally compliant, are payments still processed? Yes, Your Honour. We act based on the IGP's approval. Once he authorizes it, we process the payments. We do not have the authority to evaluate the legality of his recommendations. In this case, the officer died while on duty and payments were made accordingly. It is not my responsibility to determine whether the offer acted unlawfully. The IGP gave approval and we processed the payments based on that.
Attorney-at-Law Sanjeeva Veeravikrama, representing IGP Deshabandhu Tennakone, previously stated that 15 witnesses listed in support of the IGP were scheduled to testify before the committee. However, following today's proceedings, he informed the committee that the remaining witnesses would not be presented before the committee of inquiry. Although those witnesses were present before the committee today, the investigation panel recommended that they be released without further testimony. As a result, only 7 witnesses from the IGP's list reports were examined and the proceedings related to his case were concluded today. The committee is scheduled to reconvene on the 1st of next month at 9:30 am, during which testimony will be obtained from 2 additional witnesses who were overseas on official duty and unable to attend earlier sessions. Both parties have agreed to submit their written submissions by 3:30 pm on the 8th of next month.
Newsfirst with the people.
2 bodies were discovered in the Thekkawatta area of Thorakolaya Middeniya following a suspected shooting incident. According to police, it is believed that the victims were brought to the location early this morning and then executed.
Police discovered the bodies of 2 men in the Thekkawatta area of Thorakolaya Middeniya following a suspected shooting incident early this morning. According to police reports, the Middeniya police received information that 2 individuals were found lying on the roadside bleeding. A special investigation team was dispatched to the location where both men were confirmed dead upon arrival. The victims have been identified as residents of Amilipitiya, a 40-year-old bus driver named Chamala Bekon from Udagallara and a 26-year-old father of 2, Kalum Tushara, who had recently returned to Sri Lanka after living abroad. Police stated that Tushara was unemployed at the time of the incident. A motorcycle believed to belong to the victims was found near the bodies. Investigators suspect that the men were brought to the location and shot with a 9mm pistol. 4 empty bullet casings were recovered from the scene. The motive behind the killings remains unknown and investigations are ongoing.
A group of politicians who arrived in Sennamani, Jaffna to participate in a protest faced strong opposition from the local residents. The protest was organized to demand an international investigation into the mass graves discovered in Sennamani. This demonstration coincided with the visit of United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, who is currently touring the northern and eastern provinces of Sri Lanka.
The ongoing protest in Semmani, demanding an international investigation into the alleged mass graves, entered its 3rd and final day today, drawing participation from civil society activists and families of the disappeared. The protest, which began on the 23rd of June, coincides with the visit of United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk. A petition calling for international intervention was circulated during the protest, with signatures being collected yesterday and continuing today. Political tensions flared when several politicians arrived at the protest site. MP Sirasa Raviharan of the Lanka Tamil Arasa Kachi was received without incident. However, when ITAC acting leader CVK Sivanyanam arrived, protesters demanded that he leave the premises, expressing anger. Later, Minister of Fisheries Ramalingam Chandrasekhar and National People's Power MP J. Rajivan also visited the site, but were met with strong resistance from the crowd.
United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, arrived in Jaffna this afternoon. Following his arrival in Jaffna, the High Commissioner also visited the Chemmani protest site. He inspected the mass graves in Chemmani as well. He then visited the UNHRC office in Nallur. There, he held discussions with a group including representatives from the Association of Relatives of Disappeared Persons in the North and East, religious leaders and the Jaffna University Students' Union.
United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk participated in a discussion held this morning at the Jubilee Hall in Trincomalee. The event was attended by a diverse group including religious leaders, family members of the disappeared and representatives from civil society.
மாவட்டம் சம்பந்தமான நிலைமைகள் ஒவ்வொரு மதவர்களும் எடுத்துரைக்கப்பட்டிருந்தது. குறிப்பாக குச்சவெளி பக்கத்திலிருந்து வந்தவர்களும் தங்களுடைய அந்த நில அபகரிப்பு அது சம்பந்தமாக இயன்றமான வரையான விஷயங்களை தாங்கள் செய்வதற்கு முனைவதாகவும் அவர்கள் தெரிவித்திருந்தார்கள்.
தாங்கள் இலங்கை அரசாங்கத்தின் படைகளும் தாங்கள் ஒப்படைச்ச ஒரு சூழ்நிலையிலே இன்று வரைக்கும் தங்கள உறவுகள் எங்கே என்று பொறுப்பு கூறக்கூடிய ஒரு நிலையில் இலங்கை ஆணையகம் இதுக்கான உதவிகளை மேற்கொள்ள வேண்டும் என்பதை அதிகமாக குறிப்பிட்டார்கள்.
Before the discussion began, a group of family members of the disappeared gathered outside Jubilee Hall in a silent protest.
நாங்கள் 17 வருடமாய் எங்கள் உறவுகளை இழந்து நாங்கள் போராடி கொண்டிருக்கிறோம். எங்கட நீதியை பெற்று தாருங்கள். போராடி கொண்டே இருப்போம். எங்கட நீதியை பெற்று தாருங்கள். நாங்கள் இவ்வளவு காலம் வச்சு எங்கட உறவுகளை இழந்துட்டு இருக்கிறோம்.
யுத்தம் முடிந்து 17 வருடங்களாக இந்த மண்ணிலே கட்டமைக்கப்பட்ட 30 கொண்டு தீர்மானத்தின்படி அது அங்கு கொண்டு வரப்பட்ட தீர்மானத்திலே பொறுப்பு கூற வேண்டிய அரசாங்கம் பொறுப்பு கூறவில்லை.
Volker Turk met with the group and listened to their stories.
மட்டக்களப்பில் கத்திரக்கொண்டானில் இனாளிப்பு செய்யப்பட்ட இடத்துல எங்கள் வீட்டில் 13 பேர் காணாமக்கப்பட்டோம். 2009 14ஆம் தேதி காதல தினத்தில் அன்றைக்கு என் தம்பி வெள்ளம் எல்லாம் கடத்தப்பட்டார். 85ஆம் ஆண்டு ஏப்ரல் மாதம் 1ஆம் தேதி என் மாமா காணாமக்கப்பட்டவர். இந்த உறவுகளுக்காக வேண்டியும் வடகிழக்கில் நாங்கள் இந்த வரைக்கும் அனுபவிச்சு கொன்ற இன அபகரிப்பு காணி அபகரிப்பு இனாளிப்புக்கு நீதி கோரி எங்களுக்கு இந்த ஆணையாளர்கிட்ட இந்த மேனுவெல்லாம் கையளிக்கிறோம். எங்களுக்கு ஒரு நீதி இல்லாமல் போயிடுது. எங்களுக்கு இதுக்கு ஒரு நீதி வீடு ஒன்று சுட்டது நாங்கள் ஆண்காரங்களும் காரியமே தான் சுட்டது ஆண்காரங்க.
Later in the afternoon, Volker Turk met with Eastern Province Governor Jayantalal Ratnasekara at the Governor's office.
අපි අදහස් උමාරු කරගත්තා අපි නැගෙනහිර පළාතේ තියෙන නැවත පදිංචි කිරීම අතුරුදහන් වූවම් පිළිබඳව එන් අමතරව අනෙකුත් මානව හිමිකම් සුරැකීම සඳහා කරන යෝජනා ඔවුන් ඉදිරිපත් කරා. අපි විශේෂයෙන් නැගෙනහිර පළාතේ තියෙන ඉඩම් ගැටලුව පිළිබඳව සාකච්ඡා කරා. ඒ පිළිබඳව අවබෝධ වූ තරමින් ඔවුන් බොහොම සතුටටපත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. අපේ රජයෙන් මේ අරගෙන තියෙන මේ දක්වා අරන් තියෙන පියවරයන් සහ වංචාව සහ දූෂණය මගාරමින් ජනතාවගේ සුබසිද්ධිය සඳහා මේ ගෙනියන වැඩසටහන පිළිබඳව ඔවුන් ප්‍රශංසාත්මකව කතා බහ කළා.
UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk called on Sri Lanka to seize a historic opportunity to heal from its past and build a more just, inclusive and resilient future. Speaking during a program in Colombo, Turk emphasized that Sri Lanka's journey holds vital lessons not only for its own people but for the world at large.
The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, said that Sri Lanka is a country of such immense human promise and it has held to its democratic institutions through painful stresses and shocks. He noted that the island is today recovering from decades of division and violence and dealing also with deep economic crisis. Turk warned that Sri Lanka is at risk of falling into two critical traps that are impunity and inequality. He said that it is for Sri Lankans to find their way out of those traps and that he is in the country to encourage the Sri Lankans in that journey. The UN rights chief noted that coming to terms with the reality of massacres, terrorism, enforced disappearances, torture or sexual violence is a very painful process. But he noted that when there is no acknowledgement of the crimes inflicted on victims and their families by all sides, grievances and hostility will fester. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk noted that an absence of justice will undermine the stability of peace. noting that his office has worked in Sri Lanka for 21 years to promote human dignity, justice and rights. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights noted that since the end of civil war, OHCHR advocated and supported progress towards a more equal society, free of discrimination, with transparent, accountable institutions and meaningful participation by the people in decision-making and public life. He noted that the full participation of women is also essential to every aspect of society, including economic growth and the work of making and sustaining peace, noting that women must have an important role in peace building in Sri Lanka and in every area of life for that matter, from education to health to representation in parliament. He said that human rights is about Sri Lankans, their concerns, rights, freedom and lives. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, said his office brings to this country a mirror that may sometimes show an uncomfortable image, as mirrors do, but which reflects back your truth. He said that Sri Lanka is at a key moment, but this can be a new chapter and a new opportunity.
On to news overseas. A day after Trump announced a truce between Israel and Iran, the ceasefire appears to be holding despite a shaky start. All parties have framed the ceasefire as a strategic victory, with Israel saying it completed its war objectives and Iran saying it forced the enemy into accepting defeat.
According to foreign media, the U.S. Embassy in Israel is expected to reopen today. Several countries have also reopened their airspace, lifting restrictions on international flights. It is against this backdrop that NATO is currently convening.
NATO convenes in The Hague.
The 2025 NATO summit opened in The Hague yesterday under unprecedented security as 32 world leaders, including Donald Trump, arrived for 2 days of high-stakes talks on defense and global security amid airspace lockdowns, street protests and sweeping citywide disruptions. This year's summit is expected to focus heavily on the Israel-Iran conflict. Speaking to the press, US President Donald Trump also shared his views on the tensions between Iran and Israel and compared the strikes on Iran with those on Hiroshima and Nagasaki 8 years ago.
Do you think that the Iranian nuclear program has been put back by these strikes? Years or totally obliterated?
I think basically decades, because I don't think they'll ever do it again. I just don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to take their oil, they're going to have some missiles and they'll have some defense. I think they've had it. I mean, they just went through hell. I think they've had it. The last thing they want to do is enrich. They've been trying to do it. By the way, it's hard to enrich. And, you know, when you look at a site like that, very, very hard to build. Very, very hard, very expensive. They spent trillions of dollars trying to do this thing, and they didn't come up with it. And we're actually getting along with them very well right now. But had we not succeeded with that hit ended the war. That hit ended the war. I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing. That ended that war. This ended that with the war. If we didn't take that out, they'd be fighting right now.
Meanwhile, two American news outlets reported that the recent US strikes did not cause significant damage to Iran's nuclear facilities, citing details from what is claimed to be a leaked Pentagon assessment report. Trump, speaking in The Hague while meeting with NATO Secretary General before the summit, said his decision to join Israel's attacks by targeting Iranian nuclear sites with huge bunker-busting bombs had ended the war, calling it a victory for everybody. He shrugged off the initial assessment, saying the findings were inconclusive and he believed the sites had been destroyed.
Mr. President, what's your reaction to the intelligence reports saying that the Iranian nuclear sites were only partially devastated, not entirely?
Yeah, well, they said it was actually, the report said it could have been they don't know. I mean, they did a report. I could have Pete talk to it because his department did the report. They really don't know. I think Israel's going to be telling us very soon because Bibi is going to have people involved in that whole situation. We hear it was obliteration. It was a virtual obliteration. When you take a look at the ground above, don't forget the flame is all underground. I believe it was total obliteration.
Situation in Israel.
Israel claims that 14 Iranian scientists were killed during the Israel-Iran conflict. The group reportedly included nuclear scientists, chemists, physicists and engineers. Meanwhile, commenting on the ceasefire, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel had achieved a historic victory against Iran.
In the 12 days of Operation Rising Lion, we achieved a historic victory, and this victory will last for generations. We overcame two immediate existential threats, the threat of nuclear bombs and the threat of 20,000 ballistic missiles. If we had not acted now, the state of Israel would be standing close to the threat of destruction. Our friend, President Trump, unambiguously joined our side. I will now say, Iran will not have nuclear weapons. Citizens of Israel, I thank you, my friend President Trump and the United States, for their part in defending Israel and in preventing Iran's nuclear threat.
The U.S. Embassy in Israel, publishing a statement, confirmed that due to the ceasefire between Israel and Iran, Home Front Command has lifted all restrictions and the U.S. Embassy in Israel will be open as usual from today. Israel reopened its airspace last night after the Home Front Command also lifted all restrictions on gatherings. According to Israeli media, Israel's main international Ben Gurion airport and other airports are returning to full operation after the country's airspace remained largely closed during the past 12 days of conflict.
Situation in Iran.
Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian has issued a statement acknowledging the ceasefire with Israel. According to foreign media, Masoud said that the conflict was imposed on Iran by Israel's adventurism and claims that people of Iran determined the end of the 12-day war. The Iranian state-run Islamic Republic news agency reported that President Pezeshkian said the country will respect a ceasefire announced by US President Donald Trump, provided that Israel also upholds its terms. Foreign media reported how Iranians were seen celebrating what they described as a victory, claiming that their forces had defeated the Israeli military. Meanwhile, Iran's parliament approved a bill today to suspend cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency. The move follows an air war with Israel in which Iran's longtime enemy said it wanted to prevent Tehran developing a nuclear weapon. The bill, which must be approved by Iran's unelected Guardian Council to become law, stipulates that any future inspection by the International Atomic Energy Agency would need approval by the Supreme National Security Council. In Parliament, 221 lawmakers voted in favor and 1 abstained, with no votes against from those present in the 290-seat legislature, according to state TV. Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bakr Kalibaf was quoted by state media as also saying Iran would accelerate its civilian nuclear program.
Sri Lanka has reached a consensus to repatriate its citizens if the conflict in the Middle East escalates following a meeting of the Cabinet Subcommittee appointed to assess potential challenges arising from the situation. The committee, chaired by Minister of Foreign Affairs Vijitha Herath, convened to discuss the impact of global instability on Sri Lanka's economic and foreign relations. Key topics included the potential effects of imports and exports to the Middle East, the impact of foreign employment, tourism and foreign reserves, the status of fuel, gas and coal reserves, and existing orders for the coming months. Although there is currently no immediate threat to fuel and gas imports, the committee agreed to identify alternative suppliers as a precautionary measure. Additionally, the committee emphasized the importance of maintaining adequate stocks of other essential goods imported from the region and preparing for possible disruptions in supply chains. Minister Herath also instructed officials to explore new trade markets to mitigate risks to Sri Lankan exports, particularly in the tea sector. The committee further discussed the potential impact on foreign remittances, which could be affected by instability in the Middle East.
At today's cabinet media briefing, key concerns were raised regarding the potential impact of escalating global tensions on Sri Lanka's economy.
We are facing this crisis from multiple angles. One major concern is the large number of Sri Lankan migrant workers currently residing in Israel and to a lesser extent in Iran. Any escalation could potentially impact remittance flows. Secondly, there is a global risk of rising oil prices due to the situation in the Middle East. Sri Lanka also exports certain goods including tea to that region, and disruptions could affect our export earnings. If you look at the composition of the committee appointed by the cabinet, you'll see that it was designed to cover all these sectors. In some areas, we need to explore alternatives, while in others, we must take steps to minimize potential damage. It's important to understand that not everything is within our control. As a country, our goal is to reduce economic harm and adopt alternative strategies during such challenging times.
Far from the city noise, under a mango tree, children turn broken desks into a stage. They sing, they dance, they try. No bright lights, no big crowds, just a small school and big dreams. Change is coming. An open-air stage for the Kattaragama Primary School. Gammatta, for the people, by the people.
Welcome back to the news. Bus fares are expected to be reduced from next month. The National Transport Commission has announced a 2.5% reduction in bus fares effective from the 1st of July. However, the Commission clarified that there will be no change to the minimum fare. The maximum fare will be reduced by 54 rupees, offering some relief to long-distance commuters. It is reported that bus associations have expressed their dissatisfaction with the government's proposal. On to more news. The CFA Society Sri Lanka Capital Markets Awards 2025, celebrating excellence in the country's capital markets, was held yesterday.
The CFA Society Sri Lanka Capital Market Awards 2025 was held in Colombo yesterday. A panel discussion offering an insightful conversation on market dynamics and economic outlooks in a more dynamic format also took place at the ceremony.
The government is considering setting up that holding company, which is also one of the main IMF recommendations in the IMF Governance Diagnostic Report. The legislation has to be done. And there was, as most of you know, there was a state-owned enterprises restructuring unit which was formed under the previous government, and my chairman Murtaza was a member of it. But I think they tried sort of a Rolls-Royce model that no corruption can take place, and unfortunately nothing happened, because when you go through that system, you have to do a seller side due diligence, buyer side due diligence. I think there were good reasons, intentions behind to make that system so bulletproof. But then there was the government change, and now there's a new, I would say, a new batsman on this crease. And he's taking, I think, a different approach. But I think if he can set up that Temasek model, state-owned like holding company, which is very good. I think since it's a IMF reform under the diagnostic report, I hope it will go through, which is actually a better option than the current model that we are in.
Earlier, our economy, we would drive growth by borrowing from abroad, borrowing from the local sources and pumping that into consumption. We're not doing that in the same way anymore. We are running surpluses on the rupee side, on the government's budget. We're running surpluses on the external side, on the country's dollar balances. So that's really not what we're doing anymore. Instead, we're building up some sort of capacity within the country, and that is driving consumption. So both of those are happening in a different way. So it's a different type of economic activity in Sri Lanka. So it's a new economy, a different type of economy, in my view.
Awards were presented in 6 categories: Best Investor Relations, Best Stockbroking Research Team, Best Unit Trust Fund, Best Sustainability Reporting, Best Sector Research Report, and Best Equity Research Report. The event celebrated excellence in the financial industry, and it brought together top minds and influential personalities to recognize outstanding achievements and discuss future trends.
The first day of the second test between Sri Lanka and Bangladesh commenced today. The test series between host Sri Lanka and visitors Bangladesh is taking place under the 2025-2027 World Test Championship. Sunal Dinusha joined the record books today as the 170th player to earn a test cap for Sri Lanka. Bangladesh captain Najmul Hossain Shanto won the toss and elected to bat first. Shadman Islam and Anamul Haq opened the batting for the visitors. Anamul Haq was bowled out for a duck off Asita Fernando. Mukminul Haq scored 21 of 39 deliveries. Opener Shadman Islam topped the batting card with only 46 of 90 deliveries. Captain Najmul Hossain Shanto was dismissed for just 8 runs off Vishwa Fernando. Bangladesh lost their first wicket cheaply for just 76 runs. Litton Das and Mushfiqur Rahim stitched up a partnership of 67 runs to steady the ship for the visitors. Litton Das fell as Sunal Dinusha's maiden test wicket for 34 runs. Mushfiqur Rahim was dismissed for 35 of 75 deliveries. Sunal Dinusha finished the day with figures of 2 for 22. Asita Fernando and Vishwa Fernando picked up 2 wickets each. At stumps on day 1, Bangladesh were 220 runs for the loss of 8 wickets. And that's a wrap of your news for tonight.
Thank you for joining us.
Good night.